Greetings, audience. Do you enjoy the content from the creators in our hobby? And do you like supporting good causes? Well, Brandon Diaz has designed us up some nice shirts that feature a handful of creators in the hobby, including myself. Designed to be more of a work style shirt. So mine says Z Containment. We got some nice barcodes. Got my logo on the side, along with some QR codes on the other arm. Nice big logo on the back. I also picked up a couple more shirts just for myself, like the Nerf Mechanic. This, of course, being for our lovely Silly Butts. And, of course, we couldn't forget our blaster technicians, like Old Fusion Designs, which, you know, I've ranted and raved about their designs so much. Of course I had to pick up their shirt. And this is just the first order for me. I definitely want to be able to order more shirts featuring more of the creators in our hobby, helping to support them along with Brandon Diaz's local club and whatever charity they have on the time, because it's a rotating charity. I believe currently it is the Trevor Project. That is the current charity, which I think is fantastic. Really glad that Brandon Diaz is doing this. Definitely check out that linked down below video. Check it out. Buy a shirt. Really cool designs. Definitely check what else Brandon Diaz has, as well as his YouTube, Instagram. More links down in the description. There's going to be filled with links down below in the description. Happy holidays, Nerfers! I'm Boomstick Mods, and today we're going to talk about displaying those fancy blasters that you have just sitting in a box right now where no one can see them. Now, obviously, the most common way that you see blasters displayed is usually either on a stand, or in our hobby, you seem to see them a lot on Pegboard. Now, obviously, you can see in my backdrop, I have my blasters up here on Pegboard, and I'm actually really happy with how this Pegboard turned out. I did end up painting it black, and it could use a couple more coats, but that's besides the point. We're here specifically talking about mounting them to your Pegboard, or possibly also just to your wall, which we'll get into later. Now, I have 3 different styles of hooks that attach to Pegboard that I'm going to be showing you today. First one is just a metal hook that I got from Home Depot. Now, you can actually get this in black now, which if you have a black background, I highly recommend, just because it helps blend into the background more. But these are about, currently at least, about $1.20. So not too expensive, and they're metal, so you know they're going to be sturdy. The next one we're going to be talking about is the 3D printed bracket from Out of Darts. Now, he sells them in a large variety of colors for $7 for a 5-pack. So roughly about the same price as the metal hooks that I got from Home Depot. Now, obviously, this gives you a lot more color options, so if you want to make your board slightly more colorful, that might be a good way to go. Now, I will say I did see a couple of other 3D printed options on Thingiverse. However, they didn't look quite as nice as the Out of Darts ones, but those are a free print yourself option. Now, currently my favorite option for displaying blasters on my Pegboard is the Magwell mounts from Nerds. Now, I will say that these are the most expensive option, and I don't know how many colors they come in since it's not listed on their Etsy, but I did reach out to them and they were kind enough to send me some ones in black, so I'm assuming that if you reach out to them about ordering some, you could ask for a custom color. And I will also state that all of these were sent to me for free by Nerds, which I'm incredibly grateful for. However, these are my true opinions on these, and I do love these. Now, aside from the fact that you might have to contact them about a custom color so they don't come in this gray, which is fine, but I prefer the black just because it blends in a little bit better. I know we're talking about specifically Pegboard here, but I will say that Nerds also does have options where you can hang it on the wall directly. So if you don't have a Pegboard, this could actually be a very useful option for you to just mount it to your wall and hang the blaster there on the Magwell. First, let's talk about visibility. You can kind of see the different options here, and I would say that the ones that stick out the most are definitely these longer prongs. Now, you can get these hooks shorter. However, the reason I got these specifically longer ones was so when I'm not filming, I can stack up more blasters on the wall, so that way they're not off the floor, so this gives you a little bit more storage space. So that is a pro for the metal hooks. Not only that, these are probably the most durable of the hooks that you have here, just because there's no 3D printed parts that you have to worry about breaking. But I will say, even if you get them in black, they do stick out a good bit. I've caught myself on these hooks multiple times while filming or just walking by them, so they do stick out a good bit. So if you want the option of hanging multiple blasters, one in front of the other, you will have to deal with these sticking out farther. But they're cheap, they're durable, you can hang multiple blasters on them, so it's really a pretty good deal, all things considered. Now, obviously, for someone like me who wants to use this as a backdrop to my videos, this doesn't quite work as well for me just because of how visible they are, so they're a bit more of an eyesore in the videos, at least in my opinion. So, moving on from the metal hooks, let's talk about the 3D printed hooks from Out of Darts. Now, I will say I've not had any of these break on me. They are a very tight fit in the pegboard holes that I have, but I will say with it being painted, that does make the holes a little bit smaller. So I don't think that's a design flaw, more just the fact that because I painted my pegboard, the holes are obviously a slightly different size now because there's paint inside these holes. But just looking at them, obviously they are going to be the most fragile of the options here just because it is all 3D printed. Not that I've had any of them break so far, but I've also not been super aggressive on them. But like, there is wobble here, so like if I wanted to, I could just snap that off. So if like you fall and your arm catches something, or if like you trip while you're hanging a blaster up, you will probably snap these off. But they're pretty minimal. You can really barely see them sometimes. Obviously, when you're dealing with black on black, it disappears a lot better than it does when it's on a bright color. But for the price, I do think these are fairly good. You could obviously print ones on Thingiverse yourself. I have not tested them, but I am pretty happy with the ones that I bought from Out of Darts. Now, they come in a variety of options. Obviously, you have the ones with the lower hook up. You have ones with a longer hookup. I've also got pegs that are a good bit longer in length. Like my Spring Thunder over here is on one of the longer pegs. So they do come in a variety of sizes. However, I will say I can't really fit multiple blasters on one of these hooks. I could probably try with one of the longer pegs, but it's still, I don't think, a good use for them. Just because the way they're hooked, they're not quite long enough to be able to sit two blasters on there at once. But again, lots of color options, cheap price, and they work well. Now let's talk about the Nerds mounts. Obviously, one of the, I would say, bigger cons is the fact that they are very limited in what they can do. Like, for example, I have an angled magwell mount here that can only work with angled magwell blasters. Same with the full length and the straight talon magwells as well, because they are designed to fit specifically within those magwells. They only fit in those magwells. Now, I will say it does depend on the blaster that you're using, because I did find that some of these smaller blasters that take straight talons do work on the angled stand, as well as a bunch of blasters that worked on the Nightingale mount. Obviously, blasters that take Nightingale mags and zinc mags work best, but a few of the angled magged blasters did work on it as well. I did also find that my fly point blaster did work well on the straight talon mount, but not the angled or the Nightingale mount. So it really does depend on the blaster for how well it works between each mount. Now, the exception to that would be the OmniRail display, because this has two adapters here that work with Picatinny and two options here that work with Nerf Rail. And there is a neat little peg here that sits right here and allows you to rotate. So you could have it at multiple angles. So if you wanted it angled more down, it's all a matter of where you set the peg mount. So if I wanted it more like that, which makes no sense because now they're vertical, but obviously that would allow you to put the Nerf rails, one on the top, one on the bottom. You have them at a slight angle. So I do really like this, and this is a neat way of displaying two at once, and it gives you a lot of options between Picatinny and Nerf rail. Now, obviously, how well it works with the rail will depend on the blaster. If you have a heavy blaster with some lightly attached rail, it probably won't work well because you have the weight of the blaster pulling against the Picatinny. So you will want to have a blaster that is strongly attached to its Picatinny if you're going to mount it on that. I see the best use case of this is probably going to be pistols. I haven't tried it with anything bigger, but I will say the issue isn't going to be with the mount. It's going to be with how the Picatinny is attached to the blaster that you have. I'm not worried about any of the Nerf rail because that's all injection molded. I haven't run across like Nerf rails that don't hold on because they're usually just two halves of the blaster. Now, when talking about durability, obviously this is 3D printed, which is more likely to fail. However, it's designed to use these metal prongs in the back, which are actually carrying the weight. It's held on with the hooks here and slotted into the pegboard along the bottom to where the weight is not on the 3D printed parts, more as it's on the metal bits right here. So it actually is going to have some pretty good durability. Definitely more than the Out of Darts one. Maybe not as much as the full metal ones, but still, I'm not worried about the mount breaking. I would see the pegboard itself breaking before this mount would actually break. Same with the metal hooks from Home Depot. Now, my one complaint with this is when it shipped to you, I had it either rubber bands or blue taped to where this holds it in place so that way it doesn't fall off in packaging. So when you take that off, which obviously you're going to want to do just because you don't want to have blue tape on here, this piece right here is loose. So obviously this makes it nice in one regard to where you could technically be sent like a replacement 3D printed part if it did fail, but it also falls out when I disconnect it sometime. So while it's hanging up, not an issue. It's more of an issue if it's not in use, it'll fall right out. So that is a slight con in my regard. Obviously that's just an issue with the pegboard mounts. The wall mount doesn't have such issue. However, it is more 3D printed parts. So this is more likely to fail than say this would because what the weight is on is metal as opposed to whereas this is just 3D printed parts. But again, this does feel like a very sturdy construction to where if it's mounted correctly, you shouldn't have any issues with the wall mount. Now, I will say one of the mounts I can't really cover is the Why the Weibo mount. However, this is one of those mounts that I do believe is a little bit more universal just because of the way that it's dipped in here and with these pegs that slide in and out for holding the Why the Weibo. I've mostly been using it for the mask that I got from Al the Geek. Definitely check him out. And I just hanged it on there. And it displays the mask quite well, I might say. You can, however, use that same dipped top to set a blaster on, so that way you have it just sitting on the top there, or you could hook it onto the little pegs here and have the blaster sitting on top of the other peg there. Obviously, this isn't the best setup for this. Something I got from my good friend Clowny. Also check him out. So, obviously, not going to hold your blaster as well as it would hold some of the other blasters, but this I would say is probably the most universal mount that Nerds has. So here are the options you end up with. You end up with a budget option from Out of Darts, which comes in a big variety of colors that you can choose from to make your wall as colorful as you like, or blend into the background depending on what color your pegboard may be. Now, obviously it's not going to be as sturdy as the ones that have metal, but it is the cheapest and it works well, and I've yet to have one actually break on me. So if you're on a budget, I highly recommend the ones from Out of Darts, or try your luck at printing your own, see how that works. I can't say how well they do because I haven't tested them. Now, if you want something that's solid, that's going to hold multiple blasters that you could get in silver or black, obviously there is the metal ones that I got from Home Depot. They work well. They stick out a bit, but they do give you the option for extra storage if that's what you're looking for. So I do think these are a good option as well. Also about $3 to hang up one blaster. So I mean, it's not bad. Now let's talk about the Nerds mounts. These are what I would consider to be specialized display mounts. I would say that they look the best. They can still blend in with your background. Like these I feel like blend in fairly well without being too obvious. They display well. But $15 per blaster is essentially what it's going to cost you. Now if you don't have a pegboard, I don't think that's necessarily a bad price because you're paying for a very much a dedicated mount to go on the wall that is going to be sturdy. So paying for the wall mount, I think that's actually a pretty good deal. As far as the pegboard mount goes, it's harder to justify that price. However, you do get a pretty nice product. And I think they look great. So for me personally, I do want to grab more. However, it's going to take over time because essentially I have to pay $15 every time I want to hang up a different blaster, or if I get multiple blasters using the same thing, I have to pick up another one of these for another $15. Now, again, I didn't pay for any of the ones I've received so far. They've all were given to me by nerds, which I'm incredibly grateful for. Definitely check out them and anybody else who I've talked about in this video. But for the average person, I would say you're probably better off with the other two unless you really like how these look. I really like these. I really can't say enough how grateful I am for nerds for sending these to me. I think they look great. I think they work really well because that's what they're designed to do. It really just comes down to whether or not you want to pay 15 bucks for a pegboard wall mount. Now, Nerds is doing a holiday sale. They're doing essentially $9 pegboard mounts along with free shipping and handling if you use the promo code posted on their Instagram. So definitely go check out their Instagram, get the code, grab some for essentially half off. I'll probably be grabbing some more myself because I definitely think it's worth it. Go check it out. So with all that being said, there's a lot of options for displaying your blasters. These are some of my favorites, or the ones that I choose to use. And I highly recommend you go down and check out all the links that I have down below. Because come on, who doesn't want to show off their blasters and just be able to have an awesome backdrop like this? Thank you all for watching, and a special thank you to all my lovely patrons, especially Nerf Nothing for being an amazing pro patron. If you'd like to support the channel or any of the other lovely hobbyists mentioned in this video, please check out the links in the description below. Don't forget, all rival status or higher patrons get monthly stickers from yours truly. This month I'm actually going to be sending out a special package to my patrons at that level, which will include a Boomstick Mods patch and maybe a few other goodies as well. Definitely check that out. I'm very excited. Happy holidays. But if you don't want to support the channel in that way, definitely check out my merch store for patches, blaster charms, shirts, and more. Don't forget to leave me a comment letting me know your thoughts on the video, and as always, like and subscribe for more foam flinging content. I've been Boomstick, and I'm out.